Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be taking a look at a bunch of regionals that took place recently. So, yeah, this was supposed to be an LEIC video exclusively, but I kind of forgot about LEIC, to be honest. I was also a bit busy that weekend, so yeah, that video never got made, so I decided to do a general Paradox Rift meta recap thing, I guess, taking a look at basically all the major tournaments that have taken place. So I think there's some big takeaways to take away from LEIC, which of course, was a massive event. I mean, over 1,000 players, huge. And the main 3 points that I had to take away from this event was point number one was that Entei Iron Valiant is officially a deck. I know this was doing pretty well in some of the smaller online tournaments, and so I basically said, I think this is a really good rogue deck. Unfortunately, that video didn't really age too well, I guess, because now it's, of course, really good and kind of expensive. But, still very glad that Entei was able to do well in the end because, of course, Suicune and Raikou have always done really well, but Entei's kind of struggled a bit, even with stuff like Heat Energy and B-Barrel. So, yeah, happy to see Entei finally doing well. The second point I would take away from LEIC was that Mew VMAX is still very much a thing. I think this is sort of surprising still to a lot of players. I know that I think with the influx of Charizard from Obsidian Flames, people maybe thought, Mew VMAX would just really decline in play, but, that's not being the case. Mew VMAX is still very much a big part of the format. It's always going to be, I think, until it rotates, to be honest, because, there's not going to be tournaments really filled with, Charizard or Roaring Moon, which is the third point that we're going to talk about. So, there's not really going to be all these, hitting for weakness kind of shenanigans, unless we see some absolutely busted dark type attacker in the upcoming sets. I just really don't think that Mew Genesect is going anywhere until it rotates, really. So I think that was the second major point to take away from LEIC. The third major point, which I will say was a bit of a surprise to me personally, I thought there would at least be two or three, but there was no Roaring Moon in top 64. So if we scroll down here, you'll see there is a bit of a lack of Roaring Moons, also like 4 God Wars in a row, which is quite funny. But yeah, no Roaring Moon in top 64. In fact, I think the first one was, if I'm not mistaken, was about 90th. So yeah, a Cloth deck did better than Roaring Moon, which is really funny. Yeah. So the best Roaring Moon performed 90th place. Now this does change. Don't hope this doesn't crush your opinions of Roaring Moon because it has done pretty well in some of these other events, as we'll see in a moment. But yeah, I do think that's kind of funny that Cloth did better than Roaring Moon. But yeah, I thought that was just a big takeaway from this event because of course it probably impacted how people felt about the deck going into the other events. But just something to bear in mind. Still, we've got these massive titans of the format decks that have already been established, like Lost Zone variants, for example, Gardevoir, Miraidon even got a Chen Pao in top 16, which is good to see. Miraidon winning the whole event, of course, but, just a really big event. Also, Snorlax finishing in top 8, kind of foreshadowing one of the future events that we'll take a look at. But, Roaring Moon just not doing as well as people probably thought it should be. I ran a poll and I said, guys, where do you think Roaring Moon stands? I know it's YouTube community polls, anyone can vote, but, y'all did say plus 60% thought it should be a top 3 deck. So, yeah, Roaring Moon, definitely a bit of a flop in this event, but as we'll see, that kind of changes a bit. So moving on to the next event, which was the Philippines Regional League, took place on the 18th of November. Nearly 200 players, so a bit of a smaller event, to be honest, but it was taken by Charizard. Very impressive, nice to see. And we do see a Roaring Moon in 12th place. Now, I don't know why there's not been the rest of the deck lists revealed. I don't know if it's to do with privacy or just a lack of overall data online, but still more of a, I don't want to say narrow pool of decks because, there could be an awful lot more variety post top 16, but still interesting to see nonetheless. I've got several God Wars in here, several Lost Zone variants doing very, very well in this event. Also got Chen Pao, which is nice to see. Chen Pao is kind of like forcing its way into the format, I guess, but nice to see Charizard doing well. I don't think there was anything particularly spicy. I don't want to focus on deck lists for this video. I kind of want to keep this pretty short as possible. And then I'll leave a link to these events in the description. So if you want to check them out for yourself, then that's fine. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything that radical. Delphox V is interesting. It's kind of been in and out of Charizard for a while. Go away, I don't care. So yeah, Delphox V. Interesting snipe capabilities. Not the worst option, but not really something that I would consider. Choice belt, lost vacuum. 2 lost vacuum actually is interesting. So I wonder if that's for like Path to the Peak and stuff, I would imagine. But yeah, Philippine League, nothing too crazy. Solidifying Charizard as a big player in this format, still a really good deck, and not just a phase of Obsidian Flames, basically. So yeah, I think that's a big takeaway from this event. Next up, though, was Regional Brisbane, which took place on the 25th of November. Nearly 400 players, so sizably bigger than Philippine Regionals, the Philippine Regional League, I should say. Now, this event was won by Gardevoir. It had a Mew, Fusion Mew, I should say, in 4th place, as well as 2 Charizards. So, as you can see here, the top 8 is a lot less varied compared to some of the other events that we've seen lately. 2 Snorlaxes, 3 Gardevoirs, 2 Charizards. But, still a very decent, well, I'd say it's actually a pretty good pool of different decks. To be honest, it's definitely been a lot worse. Also, something that I found really amusing about this event, wasn't just the fact that there's actually a lot of Miraidon doing well in this one, but it's also Cloth Electrode finishing 17th place. So I will, make an exception here and take a look at Cloth because Cloth is interesting and I like Cloth. Is there anything too spicy or crazy about Cloth? Doesn't look like it. So yeah, of course, Hisuian Electrode V acting as a backup attacker. I know this card kind of makes it so this deck isn't completely a single price deck, but I mean, come on, the majority of the deck is single price, so I think it kind of counts as a single price archetype. But yeah, Hisuian Electrode V, nice card for the deck, very cool. Glad to see special conditions are like actually viable for once. So always happy to see a Cloth deck doing well. And yeah, 17th place Cloth, everybody. I'm very happy about that. But yeah, aside from that, there's, nothing too crazy. I don't think there was anything wildly spicy. There was this Snorlax statue deck, though, in 43rd place, which I guess we can have a poke at. See if there's anything too crazy. Okay, so yeah, it was a kind of like a Snorlax attacking deck, but also using the absolutely busted Mewtwo V Union. So that's nice to see. Also got a Bombardier EX, which not sure if that's necessary, but I guess you're hunting for the Zatus and, well, the Natus in the early game, so it's kind of important. But yeah, still not sure about Bombardier. I think that's a bit of a hot take. But yeah, Zinnia's Resolve, which is really popular in Japan. It's been popular in Japan for ages, but yeah, not something you see in the West very often, but interesting to see nonetheless. I guess you can discard fusion pieces, the union pieces rather, and then, draw a bunch of cards, which is nice. And nothing really aside from that. There's a lot of energy, a lot of spear and retrieval, which I suppose is fine. Got a Pioneer in here. Yeah, nothing too wild, but still just a more of an interesting deck, basically, to have a look at. And then, of course, another Cloth deck in top 64, which is funny. So, yeah, a very entertaining event. I know top 8 seems kind of dull, but I think the rest of the event was, pretty interesting. Next up, though, is we've got regional word that I cannot pronounce, and I'm not going to try and pronounce, and that took place on the 25th of November. Nearly 1k players, so very, very big. The event was won by Snorlax Stole, which is a deck that, you either love it or you hate it, right? It's the Marmite deck of the format right now. It is very much a, if you play this deck, then you probably love playing it, but anyone else who plays against this deck is going to have a really bad time. It is very annoying to play against from what I've seen. There has been similar decks when I've been able to play against, stuff like this, and it's been very annoying. But yeah, it's definitely not my kind of deck. It's not a deck that I would like go out of my way to play, really. But, glad to see that Control can still do really well, because I know that it seems like such an annoying strategy to have in the game, but it is important that the game has multiple win conditions and multiple strategies. If everything's just a turbo deck or slow decks, there's no like alternate win conditions, then things become pretty boring. And it's a sign of a good game where there's multiple strategies. So glad to see Snorlax Stole doing well, even if it's, an extremely annoying deck to play against. But yeah, this is the list if you wanted more of a look at it. But yeah, I suppose that's about it for Snorlax Stole. There's also a Charizard deck and then a Palkia deck, which I believe was playing Ice Rider, if I'm not mistaken. I think someone mentioned this online. So this was playing a very thin line of Ice Rider Cataracts. What I would like to know is how many times this card was actually used, because this card really fell off as we moved away from VMAX and into V-Stars, because, it's a pretty powerful card, but it's also a 3-prizer that can be one-hit by so many things but now for some reason. So yeah, no, it's a cool card. Weakness to metal isn't nearly as bad as it once was with Lacazation around, but it's questionable because it's a 3-prizer and it's a VMAX and evolves from a pretty fragile 2-prizer as well at that. So yeah, not really as efficient as Chen Power or Suicune, but yeah, this deck is just playing a whole bunch of different stuffs. It's kind of like I'll get the image open to make it a bit easier to view there. Yeah, there we go. So it is mainly a Palkia deck, but you also have these other attackers that you can take advantage of if you need. And what's cool about having stuff like Calyrex and Suicune and even Luminion in the deck is you can use Melanie to accelerate to them and then attack with Chien-Pao and do a big blow up. I'm guessing Chien-Pao is in here just to find energy, really, and then you can also use it for a big one-hit KO, I guess, if you really need it to. But yeah, it's still a very interesting list, and it's pretty cool to see Palkia and Ice Rider actually doing well again. So nice to see. Also, we've got another 10th place Roy Moon. I didn't look at the other Roy Moons, so I feel like kind of obliged to look at this one. But how is this? Is there anything too spicy in this deck? Not really. It is playing 2 water energy, so maybe we can try and work out why that is. Why is this deck playing water energy? Is there any reason at all? I don't know what the reason is, actually. Why would you... Is it to kind of attack? I mean, we have 4 energy switch, so I guess maybe it is to attack with Greninja or Luminion. Because, right, you can use Morpeko to put 2 dark energy on a Greninja or Luminion, and then you can attach a water to use... Oh, well, you can't do that with Greninja, but you can do it with a Luminion, I guess. So, yeah, maybe it's to attack with Luminion. That's interesting. You could also, I guess, use it for genome hacking, but that's still, that can be paid with dark energy, so it doesn't really make much sense there. But yeah, it's an interesting list nonetheless. Not sure I'm a huge fan of that idea, but it's still an idea nonetheless. I don't think there was anything else too wild from this event, from what I could tell. Is there anything else? Okay, we got a Cloth, narrowly missing out on top 64. That's tragic. But is there anything else that was interesting? Don't think so. No, not really. So I know I'm making it sound like it was boring. There is a lot of decks here. There's a lot of variety in these events, which is good. Gone were the days where it's just 4 Lugia V-Stars in top 8 and stuff like that. But yeah, this has been Emma Power. Hope you enjoyed today's video. It's been a very kind of casual look, I guess, at tournaments. I'm not really a competitive player. Never was really, but if you enjoy these kind of videos and you maybe want to see more of a deck list, then I'll be sure to leave a link to the tournaments in the description. But yeah, it's been Emma Power, and thank you for watching.